You're listening to Malmborg Report, where we discuss the intersection of creativity, work, and the systems in which they are shaped. Welcome to the program. My name is John Malmborg. My guest today is a recording artist from California, Leah Cordova. Welcome to the program. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Very nice, very nice. So tell me a little bit about your musical background. We've connected through Threads primarily. I met so many different artists on there. It was kind of just this meeting of the minds on there. But, in the sea of artists, you definitely stood out. Like, your voice really captured my attention. So I'm just curious, how long have you been doing this? What's your experience?
Well, I never studied music formally, but I've been around music all my life. I grew up in church, singing in church, so that was my first initial contact to it. But my father sang and shared music every day. There was piano, guitar. My grandmother, she sang beautifully. She exposed me to a lot of bolero music, which is a Mexican type music, a genre, and a lot of opera music from her. So I was exposed really early. And, a California girl, you kind of just drive everywhere with your parents and listen to KRS 101 on the radio and listen. I remember listening to oldies music and I knew the lyrics right away. I just got them memorized because I loved the songs, and I've always loved being exposed to that. And they're fine memories for me growing up. And later on, I picked up the guitar. I want to say mostly because it was there. My brother, he's a musician. He plays guitar. It was actually his guitar, and I just grabbed it, and I just loved the sound of it. And I think I went through a very depressing state, and that's how the music journey began for me.
Yeah, I mean, anytime there's an emotional state, depression or something like that, at least with my experience, depression led you into kind of the guitar. Was it like a focus thing where you're going through something and the practice of it is sort of like a solace for you?
I think I used it like a meditative release of emotions. And like I said, I've been hearing these songs all my life, and for some reason they spoke to me, and I just kind of had the lyrics down and I had the melody down. I just needed to get the chords. So, I mean, anything from like oldies and Fleetwood Mac and the Cranberries. I started out with covers. They were all pretty sad songs though. And I feel that they spoke for me when I couldn't speak for myself.
Yeah.
So music is so powerful when it comes to that. Sometimes it's subconscious. I wasn't aware of it at the moment, but I knew that I had a song in my heart that I needed to release and let out. And I just felt, lighter.
Did that lead you to performing, going to open mics or shows? Or was this just kind of like a contained thing at first?
Definitely contained. I was your avid car driver and your shower singer. What I meant, car singer and shower singer.
Yeah.
I got confused there. But yeah, I just sang at home alone whenever the house was empty, which was rare. We lived in a very full house, but the first thing that I would do is sing and let it out entirely, and it felt amazing. Then I picked up the guitar, and every once in a while people would hear me and they're like, that's really good. You should give it a shot. And so it wasn't after a few people telling me give it a shot, maybe try an open mic, that I gathered the courage to go to an open mic and perform. And that's how it kind of opened up a lot of doors. So I've been asked to come back. I've been asked to return. I've been doing coffee shops and wine bars, little gigs like that. which, I didn't expect at all. I was just merely playing because I needed to and I wanted to. And it was like a song that I needed to release.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are driven to music for very personal reasons, whether it's, I mean, tying into, you mentioned the familial kind of exposure, the personal exploration with the singing and the instrument and the song. I think that's typically what gets people into music. I mean, sometimes people have a very particular idea where they're like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But oftentimes it just sort of happens. And I think that's a cool thing about music, but it also, a career in music is such a nebulous term, right? Like a career could be a really well paying gig 1 month and nothing for the next three, depending on what you do. So at this point, do you see yourself doing a full time music thing, or what's your position on it?
I'm not trying to put pressure on myself when it comes to that because I think that it kind of distracts from the main intent, which is to sing and put out a song and put out something with meaning that I put out my voice. And I think a voice means anything from something you have to say, something you're trying to contribute, some kind of dialogue you're trying to put out there, something that needs to be heard, something that you're wanting to release. So I'm not trying to put pressure on that. I think that it comes and goes, and I'm very susceptible to that. But, it would be nice to be able to do it regularly. I always told myself it'd be such a luxury to sing every day. You
Yeah.
know, I would love that. But I say I'm an artist by night because by night is when I feel like the most creative. And by day, I'm hustling and bustling like another average Angelino
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
make men's meet. So, and also I think it disturbs from the actual value of the art. I do foresee making more music. I do foresee making music all my life. I usually do it in private and writing, but I foresee, writing more, maybe an EP, or I'm hoping to put out a single soon. And I'm open to exploring new sounds and collaborating with new people and always kind of evolving as a person. And if it be with music, then of course I'd gladly and willingly do it.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a very like purpose-driven, life-oriented way of approaching music. So tell me a little bit about Los Angeles. I've only been there once, but I found it very like compelling and kind of enchanting. What is your experience growing up there?
It has a heart. And I don't think that the cinema captures it very well. The voice of the people are often under the carpet and in the shadows. But the people here that I see in my day to day life, my family, my social circle, even beyond that, the people here are just very beautiful. But I'm also biased. It's my home. It's my home.
Yeah.
I grew up here. The palm trees and the freeways and driving for miles and miles, listening to music on the road is something that I am very fond of. I find it very therapeutic. Without the traffic. Have to
Yeah.
pick your days and times to do that because if you do it during the rush hours, you're pretty much screwed. But I find it so just beautiful and it's inspirational to me. The fact that so many greats have walked the same steps as I have, and I have like 3 generations strong here, and they've also walked these same paths, and it definitely will always be where my heart is, but I not necessarily completely loyal to one place. I say that I think the world is my home. I feel like I can belong here, I can belong there, I can really belong anywhere because I generally will find a common interest with anybody because in the end we're all human and we all have the same human attributes of being kind to one another and loving to one another. And that transcends anywhere you go. It doesn't stay locally in one spot.
No, absolutely. Like the idea of a global citizen, right? I sometimes think about, I've spent much of my life, not all of it, but much of it in upstate New York, a very different place than Southern California. But I do relate to the driving around thing because when I was growing up, there were very few places I would go except either kind of directly where I lived, or sometimes I would go to Massachusetts, which is kind of just right over to the other side, because that was where some of my extended family lived. But once I started driving a vehicle, I started exploring these areas I had never been to. Like if you go north into New York State, as you go towards the Canadian border, there's the Adirondack Mountains. People often joke that mountains on the East Coast don't count as mountains on the West Coast. They're more like hills. I've heard that before.
Really?
But yeah, I mean, the highest peaks in the Adirondacks are somewhere around like 5,000 feet. But if you go to the west, like I spent some time in Tucson as well. They've got peaks that are like 16, 20,000. So it's all relative, I suppose. But to me, seeing mountainscapes and all that kind of thing was definitely fascinating. And I would drive and I would listen to music I was writing. I would burn CDs and that kind of thing and study my own music and try to compose in my head while I was driving.
I've done that. Yeah. I pull out my voice memos, and I don't advise it because I'm driving. So,
Right.
FYI.
More hands-free, the better,
yes,
right?
I sometimes will do them. Like I'll hear a melody and I'm like, okay. Or I'll hear a song there in the radio and I haven't heard in a while. And sometimes like I'll jump off of that melody and create it my own. And then I'll just record it real quick before I forget it. So I have a bunch of etches and sketches in my voice memos created, or even just like when I'm road tripping. We do the same thing out here. If you ever get the chance to come out here, the PCH is such a wonderful route. I love that route. And most recently, my partner and I went up to Big Sur, and I was on the driver's seat, and I was just like amazed by the beauty. One side is like the sea, on the other you have the mountain range and the skirt of the mountain, and you're in between it. And you're just so captivated by the immense beauty. And I just remember grabbing my journal and like just going at it, like lyrics came out. And I mean, I have yet to put music to it, but I'm not afraid of finding music. I know it will come to place when it's supposed to, but it's just awesome how driving alone or doing something like that meditatively allows a voice or a song to come out of you.
Yeah, I want to do that highway. I want to do that. I mean, I've done sections of it, like in the San Diego area. I've been there and did that a little bit near LA when I was going to Malibu. But to do the whole stretch would be probably a top journey in the entire US, if I had to guess.
Yeah, it's definitely beautiful. Right now, we're struggling a little. I think we're all healing from the fires.
The fires.
So, yeah, I wouldn't say right now, but I am comforted by the fact that from ashes come really beautiful things.
Yes.
So I really think that there is potential for it to be rebuilt and one day become better, if, not the same. So I think eventually that will come back, but right now it's a little bit troublesome to get to that route, but it is beautiful. That's why they say it's a beautiful route, because it really is.
Yeah.
But all of our whole country is full of these wonders. Like, if you go to New Mexico, or, I heard the Appalachian Trail is beautiful and I've never been. So that's on my list. And that's further by where you're at, I think.
Yeah, I've never personally walked the Appalachian Trail, but I mean, I've intersected with it on foot. Like, so it's a pretty long stretch across the eastern U.S., but there are points like there's a place called Bear Mountain, New York, which is further south. It's just a bit north of New Jersey. And the Appalachian Trail goes right through there. And then it snakes up all the way into like New England from there. Yeah, there's just so much to see. And I've seen a good amount of it. But like, even if you go through, say, a state, there's so many parts of the state you aren't actually through. If you're just going in a linear line, exploration of places is something that I really hope to have more time to do soon. The sooner the better.
I find inspiration from it.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of artists in general do. All my favorite artists out there, like John Steinbeck, he wrote amazing books and stories about the Great Depression and pretty much that whole route from Oklahoma to California and California up to Salinas. I think it's beautiful because he was inspired by our landscape. Walt Whitman wrote a lot about the area that he lived in. Mark Twain, these are all people that, and I know they're like the stereotypical, writers, but they've inspired me so much because I think they have a fascination and love for nature.
Yeah.
And they find.
So you're a bit of a transcendentalist.
I guess so. In some form, yeah.
I've never heard like a contemporary person ever refer to themselves that way. It's a thing, but it's like I've never heard of a contemporary transcendentalist movement, but who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe you just came up with something.
Maybe. I got to run it by some people, see if it works, right? But yeah, for me, I really relate to the whole, relationship between music and place and travel, and whether it's a car, on foot, walking around a neighborhood, taking a train, even a flight, potentially, right? Travel and kind of the wandering or the destination, the journey, there is something about that which I think excites the creative mind, whether consciously or subconsciously. And that's good. I love that.
And then you have people like, Bob Dylan, who wrote about the social climate
100%.
he was aware of. So also that's an inspiration too.
Yeah, the people you meet, the stories you experience, like they could be the broader political things, right? Like of the times. And one person's reflection on those times could be very powerful, or at least a way for people to process what they're experiencing. I've been thinking about this too, because in the last couple of years, I've been getting more involved in the labor movement, which is becoming a bigger thing right now. The cost of living is just so high for so many people. Rents are going up double-digit percentages all the time. And even jobs that were once considered solid jobs or like middle-class, solid, even like white-collar positions, people are still, having to get roommates, do this, do that, no matter what field you're in. And at a certain point, that kind of pushes, workers and the public to a certain point, right? And I've been thinking about, obviously, those issues themselves, but I've been also kind of in the back of my mind thinking about how does that influence my art and creativity?
I think that for me, I'm very moved. The situation we're in and our political state and where we stand as a nation, I'm very moved by it. But I'm just one person. What can I do? I feel very motivated to do something. And so the only thing that I can offer is my words, my music, my voice, a stage presence, maybe, because I do seek the stage. And that's pretty much it. So I'm very motivated towards something that will bring awareness, shed some light into our current state, because as artists, we're living in a very interesting time where I feel like we're called to do something. If that is where our strengths lie, like that's where we should be putting the stream towards so that we all move together. I really believe that it's very powerful, and art is the most powerful movement there could be. I truly believe that. I'm also biased because that's my truth. Everybody's truth is dependent on them, but I feel motivated and I'm very excited to be able to rise to the occasion. At least I hope. when
Yeah,
it's
right.
being said
We
and
do the
done.
best we can,
Yeah,
I mean, that
yeah.
a lot of that thought process is what I was thinking about with this program, doing my own podcast slash YouTube channel, whatever, is, you know, there's a lot of shit going on. And I want to just talk to people about what they're experiencing. But I also, like sometimes I want to talk about nice things like mountains and lakes and all that. But like at the same time, there's deeper meaning to it. And it's the things that inspire us to be who we are and to have the kind of passions we have, right? But I also know there's a lot of people who are living through the worst of what's going on and voices are not being heard. Some people I've collaborated with many years ago and have had lifelong friendships with, using that communication to share stories, I think is powerful. I hope.
For sure. There is power in community. And I know after we finish this conversation, I'll probably go and spread whatever I learned with our exchange and pass it on. And whoever you speak to next is also gonna pass it on. And it's like a ripple. So it is very powerful. Whatever you put your energy towards and whatever you put into fruition and into action, because I think that the real test of it is you can say a lot, but then you actually have to do it in order to make something move forward or to make a shift or to make a difference. And I'm not saying that I mean, ideally, what I said before, that's the end goal that I'd want. But will I see it? Probably not. Will I be taking actions towards it? For sure.
And those have value, right? Like even if there's sort of an idealized achievement or whatever, any contribution you make is, it's part of the world and, it inspires others. It contributes things in a certain direction. And, that's part of it, right? Doing the best we can, leveraging some of our strengths, whatever they might be. And in our case, it might be the creative fields, the media fields, what have you, the voice, the song, and putting it out there, like not being afraid. I think that would be, if I was giving advice to the broad public, is this isn't a great time to be afraid. It's a good time to be willing to speak and to sing and to live and to be.
It's easier said than done.
For
I
sure.
myself, I get very in my head about things sometimes, and it's just natural human nature to be a little bit afraid. But at the same time, it's not about the bigger picture. And I think if we remind the general public that whatever you have to say is not yours, it's for everyone else to benefit from. It's for you to release and give away and hopefully help others. If you think that, then you remove your ego from it and
Yes.
you let it go and release it. And you never know who you can help and who you might affect or what heart you may touch. It reminds me of that quote from Martha Graham, the dancer. Whatever it is, just release it. Keep the channel open. Don't judge it. You may think it's the worst, but that's not up to you to decide. Just keep the channel open and do it without fear. So
Yes,
I
fear
love
is
that.
natural. Fear is natural, but
Yeah.
it's also it's something we recognize as a barrier to sharing things with others, because it is about the interconnected community. We're not dealing with individual issues. We're looking at systemic issues, economic issues, environmental issues, and everyone has to hold hands, chip in, and do what they can for their neighbor, etc. For sure. Do you have anything else to say about the California fires?
Thanks to everyone who supported, to all those who were affected. I'm just grateful for my community and the people that I see on my day-to-day basis and the support that I've seen among ourselves and each other is beautiful to see. And I feel like that is such an example for what we should be like moving forward, because it was so amazing how much support we gave to each other and how much we relied on one another. and we were able to, you know, provide for the needs that so-and-so person needed, even more so. It was overpouring, to be honest, which is beautiful to see. So we're very capable. I feel that was a testament of that. Like when people come together, it's amazing what we can do. So hang in there, people of Palisades and the Eaton Fire, and we love you, like.
Yeah, no, from the eastern U.S., my heart goes out to California and those affected by the fires. Well, any upcoming plans with music? Do you got any sessions? You got any shows? Anything going on?
I do have a show, but it's not for myself. I'm a backup dancer for a friend of mine who is putting out music. I'm happy to support as ever. I think going back to what we were saying, like supporting each other it somehow comes around. So we're just lifting each other up. I believe that. So I'm helping her out with that. Super talented girl. Happy to provide her info.
What's her name?
Her name is Eleanor. She goes by Queen Eleanor.
That's a good name.
Loved her song. She's putting out, I think she has a show and putting out 3 songs. And I'm hoping to put out a single and maybe put out a music video. So that's in the works for myself.
Well, I'll definitely be looking forward to that. And it was really nice to meet you. This was great conversation. It was a pleasure.
Likewise. I also appreciate your support. And
yes.
It made me really happy to hear that you're doing this. And I saw you release something, so I'm looking forward to listening.
Yeah, I did release a lot of things, but thank you. All right. Well, thank you for coming on, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Malmborg Report. If you enjoyed this episode, follow me on social media at It's John Malmborg and subscribe to Malmborg Report on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Want to stay in the loop? Sign up for my email list at johnmalmborg.com. And if you'd like to support the show directly, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Malmborg Report. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you next time.